Make yourself comfortable. Let your breathing slow and your body settle. Tonight, we descend the narrow servants' stairs of a Georgian townhouse in London, in the year 1795, where the work of keeping a wealthy household running unfolds in quiet, repetitive routine. There will be no grand events here, no balls, no scandals, no dramatic moments. Just the steady, invisible labor of servants cleaning grates, polishing silver, preparing meals, tasks repeated daily. Work that must be done perfectly but is never noticed when done well, only when done poorly. This is the world below stairs, the hidden machinery that makes genteel life possible. So close your eyes, settle into stillness, and let us begin in the early morning darkness, when the servants rise while the family still sleeps. The household wakes in layers. The family sleeps on, but below stairs, in the servants' quarters in the basement, the day has already begun. It is 4:30 in the morning, and Sarah, the scullery maid, is the first to rise. Sarah is 16 years old, the lowest-ranking servant in the household. She has been in service for 3 years, since she was 13, and she knows her duties by heart. They are the dirtiest, most tedious tasks in the house, but they are hers, and she performs them without complaint, because this position, humble as it is better than the alternatives. She sleeps in a tiny room off the scullery, barely larger than a closet, with a narrow bed and no window. The room is cold and damp in winter, stuffy in summer, and always dark. She dresses quickly in the darkness, her fingers finding her work dress by feel a rough cotton thing in dull grey, with a white apron tied over it. On her head, a white cap to keep her hair covered. This is her uniform, worn 6 days a week, year after year. She lights a candle, then makes her way to the scullery proper. This is her domain. A stone-floored room with a deep sink, a large table for washing dishes and preparing vegetables, shelves holding pots and pans, and a coal stove that must be lit first thing each morning. The stove is her first task. It has been banked overnight with a small amount of coal to keep a pilot fire burning, but now it must be built up to provide heat for the day's cooking and hot water for washing. Sarah rakes out the ash from yesterday, careful not to spill any on the floor. Then she adds kindling and small pieces of coal, coaxing the fire to life with bellows. The fire resists at first, smoking but not catching, but she is patient and persistent. Eventually flames appear, and she adds more coal, building the fire up steadily. While the stove heats, she begins the first of her many cleaning tasks, the kitchen grates. The kitchen proper, where the cook will work, is adjacent to the scullery. It has a large cooking range with multiple grates where pots sit over the fire. These grates become coated with soot and grease each day, and each morning they must be cleaned. Sarah takes a small brush and a jar of black lead paste. She kneels before the grates and begins scrubbing away yesterday's accumulation. The paste is gritty and unpleasant, staining her hands black. The work is repetitive. Scrub, 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 move to the next section. The grates are large and there are several of them. This task alone takes nearly an hour. When the grates are clean, she must black them, apply fresh black lead, and polish it to a shine. This makes the iron look new and prevents rust. She applies the paste with a cloth, then buffs it with a clean cloth until the metal gleams. Her arms ache from the scrubbing and buffing, and she has barely started the day's work. Next, she must fetch coal from the coal cellar to fill the scuttles throughout the house. The coal cellar is in the sub-basement, down another flight of stairs, and it is completely dark except for the candle she carries. The coal is stored in a large bin, and she shovels it into buckets, then carries the heavy buckets up 2 flights of stairs to the main house, filling each coal scuttle, one in the kitchen, one in the servants' hall, and several upstairs in the family rooms, though those will be filled later by the housemaid. By the time she finishes filling the coal scuttles, it is nearly 6 o'clock. The cook will arrive soon, and the scullery must be ready for the day's work. Sarah sweeps the scullery floor, wipes down the table, ensures all is clean and orderly. Then she begins heating water on the stove for the inevitable washing that will come after breakfast. This is Sarah's morning routine, performed every single day without variation. Tomorrow will be exactly the same, and the day after that, and the day after that. The work is hard, dirty, and monotonous, but it is necessary. Without Sarah's labor in the dark hours before dawn, the household could not function. At 6 o'clock, Mrs. Blake, the cook, arrives in the kitchen. She is a stout woman of 50, who has been in service all her life and has been the cook in this household for 15 years. She is skilled, efficient, and stern. Sarah, as the scullery maid, works under Mrs. Blake's direction and is expected to anticipate her needs without being told. Mrs. Blake begins preparations for the family's breakfast. The family, Sir Thomas and Lady Ashford, their 3 children, and Lady Ashford's elderly mother breakfasts at 9 o'clock, which means the food must be ready by 8:45 to be served properly. Mrs. Blake has a little over 2 hours to prepare everything. Breakfast in a Georgian household of this class is substantial. There will be bread, butter, preserves, cold meats from yesterday's dinner, eggs prepared in various ways, perhaps fish if it is Friday. Mrs. Blake organizes her tasks mentally, then begins issuing quiet orders to Sarah. Fetch eggs from the larder, 12, and bring up the ham from the cold room. Sarah moves quickly. The larder is a cool room off the kitchen where dry goods and some fresh items are stored. The eggs are in a bowl, and she counts out 12 carefully, then carries them back to the kitchen. The cold room is in the basement, a stone room built partially underground to stay cool year-round. The ham hangs there, wrapped in cloth. Sarah takes it down and carries it upstairs to the kitchen. While Mrs. Blake slices the ham and arranges it on a serving platter, Sarah is set to preparing vegetables for the midday and evening meals. She sits at the scullery table with a large bowl and a pile of potatoes. Using a small knife, she peels each potato, dropping the peel into a bucket for the pigman who comes weekly to collect kitchen scraps, and the peeled potatoes into a pot of water. The peeling is mindless work, allowing Sarah's thoughts to wander. She thinks about home, a small village in the countryside, where her parents still live with her younger siblings. She sends most of her wages home, keeping only a few shillings for herself. She has not seen her family in more than a year, as servants receive only 1 day off per month, and the village is too far to reach in a single day. She misses them, but this is life. Many girls like her are in service, working to help their families survive. The potatoes done, Mrs. Blake sets Sarah to washing the pots and pans that have already accumulated from the breakfast preparations. The scullery sink is filled with hot water from the stove, and Sarah adds soap, a harsh lye soap that stings her hands, and begins scrubbing. Each pot must be cleaned thoroughly, dried, and returned to its proper place on the shelf. At 8:30, the kitchen maid, Agnes, arrives. Agnes is 19 and has been in service for 6 years. She ranks above Sarah but below Mrs. Blake. Her primary duty is to assist the cook and to do some of the lighter kitchen work. Agnes is friendly to Sarah, though their different ranks mean they cannot be close friends. Agnes begins beating eggs for an omelette, while Mrs. Blake prepares the toast. The kitchen is now fully active, with multiple tasks happening simultaneously. Sarah continues washing dishes, trying to keep up with the constant production of dirty pots and utensils. At 8:45, the food is ready. Mrs. Blake arranges everything on serving dishes. The ham, the toast in a silver toast rack, the eggs, the butter in a dish, the preserves in small pots. These are placed on a large tray, which Agnes carries upstairs to the dining room, where the family will eat. Sarah, meanwhile, begins cleaning up the kitchen. More pots to wash, the table to wipe down, the floor to sweep. The kitchen must be clean before the midday meal preparations begin. And those will start soon. Mrs. Blake allows herself only a brief rest before beginning the next round of cooking. Sarah eats her own breakfast standing at the scullery sink, a piece of bread with drippings and a cup of weak tea. This is quick, perhaps 5 minutes, then she returns to work. There is always work. While Sarah labours in the scullery, other servants are attending to their own duties throughout the house. Mary, the housemaid, is one of 3 housemaids employed by Sir Thomas. She is 22 and has been with the family for 4 years. Her responsibilities include cleaning the family's rooms, making beds, dusting, sweeping, and ensuring the house is immaculate. Mary's day begins at 6:30, half an hour later than Sarah's, as her work does not start quite as early. She dresses in her uniform, a simple cotton dress in a dark colour, with a white apron and cap, and begins with the public rooms on the ground floor, the entrance hall, the drawing room, and the dining room. The dining room is her first priority this morning, as it must be cleaned after breakfast before it can be set for the midday meal. The family is still at breakfast, so Mary cannot enter yet. Instead, she starts with the drawing room, which was used yesterday evening and needs attention. She enters quietly, carrying her cleaning basket with all her supplies: dusters, cloths, beeswax polish, a small brush for sweeping, and matches for lighting fires. The drawing room is an elegant space with upholstered furniture, paintings on the walls, ornamental objects on every surface, and a large fireplace. Mary begins with the fireplace. The fire from last night has gone cold, leaving ash and spent coals. She kneels before the hearth and carefully sweeps out the ash into a metal bucket, taking care not to raise dust that would settle on the furniture. Once the ash is removed, she lays a new fire, crumpled newspaper at the bottom, kindling on top of that, and small pieces of coal arranged carefully. She will light this fire later, closer to when the family might use the room. Next, she dusts. Every surface must be dusted every day: the mantelpiece, the side tables, the windowsills, the picture frames. She works methodically, moving around the room clockwise, ensuring she misses nothing. The dust is captured on her cloth, which she shakes out the window periodically. After dusting comes polishing. The wooden furniture must be polished weekly, and today is a polishing day for this room. Mary applies a small amount of beeswax polish to a cloth and rubs it into the wood of the side tables, working in circular motions until the wax is absorbed and the wood gleams. This is satisfying work, watching the dull wood become lustrous under her hands. She then sweeps the carpet with a small brush, working on her hands and knees, brushing the pile to refresh it and remove any loose dirt. A carpet beater is used weekly outdoors, but daily brushing maintains the appearance between those more thorough cleanings. The room complete, she moves to the entrance hall. This is a high-traffic area and must always be immaculate, as it is the first space visitors see. She sweeps the stone floor, polishes the brass door handle and knocker, ensures the hall table is dust-free, and the fresh flowers in the vase are still acceptable. By now, the family has finished breakfast and vacated the dining room. Mary enters and begins clearing the table. The dishes are carried down to the scullery for Sarah to wash. The tablecloth is inspected for stains. There is a small spot of jam and replaced with a fresh one. The chairs are pushed back into perfect alignment. The sideboard is dusted. This is Mary's morning, moving from room to room, cleaning, dusting, polishing, arranging. The work is repetitive, but requires attention to detail. Nothing can be overlooked. Lady Ashford inspects the house daily and notices if anything is out of place or inadequately cleaned. The housemaid's performance is constantly evaluated, and poor work means reprimand or, in extreme cases, dismissal. Mary does not mind the work. It is not as dirty as the scullery maid's work, and she has some autonomy in organizing her tasks. She is also allowed occasional interaction with the family, though she must always be deferential and invisible in the sense of not calling attention to herself. By midday, Mary will have cleaned all the ground floor public rooms and begun on the bedrooms upstairs. The work never ends. As soon as one room is clean, another needs attention. And tomorrow all the rooms will need cleaning again. It is an endless cycle. The household also employs a footman named James. He is 24 years old, tall and presentable, which are important qualities for a footman. His duties are varied: answering the door, serving at table, accompanying the family on outings, running errands, and performing various tasks that require a presentable male servant. James's morning has been different from the female servants. He rose at 7, later than Sarah and Mary, as his primary duties do not begin until the family is awake. He dressed in his livery, a formal coat with brass buttons, breeches, white stockings, and polished shoes, and ate his breakfast in the servants' hall. His first task of the day was to clean and polish all the boots and shoes in the household. This is a daily duty. The family's shoes are left outside their bedroom doors each evening, and James collects them, cleans them in the servants' hall, and returns them before the family rises. Today's batch included Sir Thomas's riding boots, caked with mud from yesterday's ride, which required considerable effort to clean properly. After the boots, James attended to the entrance hall, ensuring it was ready for any visitors. He then served at breakfast, standing behind Sir Thomas's chair, ready to refill teacups or fetch anything required. Footmen at table are expected to be silent and nearly invisible, responding immediately to any request but never speaking unless addressed. After breakfast, James was sent on an errand, to fetch a package from a shop on Bond Street for Lady Ashford. This required walking a mile each way, as the family does not send the carriage for such minor errands. James does not mind these walks. They are a chance to be outside, away from the house, with a brief taste of freedom. Now, at midday, James is setting the dining table for the midday meal. This is one of his regular duties. The table must be set precisely according to household standards. First, the fresh white tablecloth, smoothed to remove any wrinkles. Then the plates, placed exactly 12 inches from the edge of the table. The silverware, forks on the left, knives and spoons on the right, arranged in order of use from outside to inside. The glasses are set above the knives, water glass, wine glass. The napkins are folded in an elaborate pattern and placed on each plate. The salt cellars and pepper pots are positioned centrally. Everything must be symmetrical, exact, perfect. James works carefully, measuring by eye, adjusting infinitesimally to ensure precision. He has set this table hundreds of times, and he knows Lady Ashford's standards. She once dismissed a footman for setting the table inadequately. James does not intend to give her any cause for complaint. When the table is set, James returns to the servants' hall to await the bell. Each room in the house has a bell pull, connected by wires to bells in the servants' hall. When a bell rings, a servant must immediately attend to determine what is needed. The bells ring constantly throughout the day, summoning servants for 100 small tasks. James's afternoon will likely include more errands, answering the door to any callers, and possibly accompanying Lady Ashford if she goes out. He might also be asked to move furniture, carry heavy items, or perform any other task requiring male strength. The life of a footman is more varied than that of the scullery maid or housemaid, but it is also more exposed. He is frequently in the family's presence and must maintain perfect demeanour at all times. He cannot show fatigue, annoyance, or any personal emotion. He is a servant, a functionary, expected to blend into the background until needed. One of the regular tasks in the household is polishing the family's extensive collection of silver. This includes serving dishes, cutlery, candlesticks, picture frames, and various ornamental objects. Silver tarnishes over time and must be regularly polished to maintain its luster. Today, this task falls to Agnes, the kitchen maid, and Mary, the housemaid, working together in the servants' hall. They sit at the long wooden table with the silver items spread before them, along with jars of silver polish and soft cloths. The polish is a paste made from whiting and alcohol. It smells sharp and slightly unpleasant. Agnes applies a small amount of polish to a cloth and begins rubbing it into a serving platter, working in circular motions. The tarnish comes off gradually, leaving the silver brighter. She buffs with a clean cloth to bring up the shine. This is painstaking work. Each item must be completely cleaned, including all the details and crevices. A fork, for instance, has multiple tines and a decorative pattern on the handle, all of which must be individually polished. The silver is extensive, and completely polishing it takes 3 or 4 hours. Agnes and Mary work in companionable silence, occasionally exchanging a few words. They are not supposed to chat extensively while working. The housekeeper, Mrs. Morris, might appear at any time and would disapprove of idle conversation, but a few remarks are permitted. "Did you hear," Mary says quietly, "that the upstairs maid in number 12 gave notice?" "Why?" Agnes asks. "Getting married. A tradesman, I heard." This is of interest. Marriage is the primary way a female servant leaves service. Few women make a career of domestic service. Most serve until they marry, then become wives and mothers. But finding a suitable husband while in service is difficult, as servants have limited time off and restricted social interactions. Agnes, at 19, thinks about marriage sometimes, but she has no prospects. She sees no men except the male servants in the household, James the footman and Thomas the coachman, and neither is suitable. James is too proud, and Thomas is 20 years her senior. Perhaps someday. But for now, service is her life. They continue polishing. The pile of finished silver grows slowly. Each piece is examined critically before being set aside. If Mrs. Morris finds any tarnish remaining, there will be reprimands. While they work, Sarah continues her duties in the scullery. The midday meal has been served and the dishes returned, and now she is washing them. The same routine as after breakfast. Hot water, harsh soap, scrubbing each dish until clean, drying, putting away. Her hands are permanently red and chapped from the constant immersion in hot soapy water. This is the rhythm of the household. Multiple servants, each performing their designated tasks, work proceeding simultaneously in different locations. The family above stairs experiences a life of leisure and elegance, unaware of or indifferent to the constant labor that makes their life possible. The servants below stairs work without pause, maintaining the invisible machinery. Dinner, the main meal of the day, is served at 6 o'clock. The preparation begins hours earlier. Mrs. Blake, the cook, plans the menu each morning in consultation with Lady Ashford, who descends briefly to the kitchen to discuss the day's meals. Today's dinner will consist of soup, fish, roasted mutton with potatoes and vegetables, a savoury and a sweet pudding. This is typical for a family of this standing. Mrs. Blake begins with the soup, a clear beef consommé. The stock has been simmering since morning, made from beef bones and vegetables. She strains it carefully through muslin, producing a clear, rich broth. This is then clarified further with egg whites, which attract and capture any remaining particles. The result is a perfectly transparent soup. While the soup simmers, Mrs. Blake turns her attention to the fish. Today it is sole, which must be filleted carefully. She works with practiced efficiency, removing the skin and bones, producing perfect white fillets. These will be lightly floured and pan-fried in butter just before serving. The mutton roast is the centerpiece. It sits in a large roasting pan, seasoned with salt and herbs. Mrs. Blake places it in the oven of the range, where it will roast slowly for several hours, basted periodically to keep it moist. Sarah, assisting Mrs. Blake, prepares the vegetables. She peels and quarters potatoes, trims green beans, slices carrots. Each vegetable must be prepared perfectly. No blemishes, consistent sizes, attractive appearance. The vegetables will be boiled separately and arranged around the mutton on the serving platter. The pudding, a traditional English suet, pudding with treacle, is steaming in a cloth in a pot of water. Mrs. Blake prepared the batter earlier, mixing flour, suet, treacle, and spices. It must steam for at least 3 hours to cook properly. As the cooking progresses, the kitchen becomes hot and increasingly frantic. Mrs. Blake moves between tasks, monitoring everything, adjusting heat, tasting, making small corrections. Agnes assists, following orders precisely. Sarah continues washing dishes and fetching anything needed from the larder or cold room. At 5:30, the pace intensifies. Everything must be ready at the same time, hot and perfect. Mrs. Blake begins plating. The soup is ladled into the tureen. The fish is pan-fried and arranged on a serving dish. The mutton is removed from the oven, rested briefly, and carved into slices arranged overlapping on a platter with the vegetables around the edges. James appears to carry the food upstairs. He makes multiple trips, his arms laden with heavy serving dishes. The family is gathering in the dining room, and the food must be there precisely at 6. At 6 o'clock, the dinner service begins. James serves the soup, moving around the table, ladling from the tureen into each person's bowl. The family eats the first course while James stands by, ready to refill bowls or remove them when finished. When the soup course is complete, he clears the bowls and brings in the fish course, then the mutton, then the pudding. Each course follows the same pattern. Serve, wait, clear, bring the next. James must be attentive but unobtrusive. If a guest at dinner makes a joke, he must not react. If the conversation is controversial, he must not show interest. He is furniture with legs, present but not present. Below stairs, Mrs. Blake finally sits down. The main work is complete. Agnes and Sarah are cleaning up the kitchen, which is chaotic with dirty pots, pans, spills and debris. This cleanup will take at least an hour. The servants will eat their own dinner later, after the family has finished and the dishes have been washed. Servants eat the same food as the family but less elaborately prepared and in smaller portions. Tonight they will have soup, a small portion of mutton, vegetables, and bread. No fish, no pudding. Those are luxuries for the family and their guests. At 8 o'clock, after the family's dinner service is complete and the kitchen is cleaned, the servants finally gather in the servants' hall for their own meal. This is one of the few times in the day when they can sit together, and there is a hierarchy even here. The servants' hall is a long room in the basement, with a wooden table and benches. At the head of the table sits Mrs. Morris, the housekeeper, who oversees all the female servants. Next to her is Mr. Graves, the butler, who manages the male servants and the household's wine cellar. These two are the highest-ranking servants and are treated with considerable deference by the others. Down the table, in descending order of rank, sit James the footman, Mary and the other housemaids, Agnes the kitchen maid, and at the very end, Sarah the scullery maid. Thomas the coachman and his assistant, who work in the separate carriage house, take their meals there. The food is served by Agnes and Mary, who bring dishes from the kitchen. Tonight's meal is modest but adequate: vegetable soup, mutton with potatoes and beans, and bread. The servants eat hungrily, as they have been working all day with only brief pauses for bread and tea. Conversation at the table is limited. Mrs. Morris does not encourage familiarity. The meal is eaten efficiently, and servants are expected to maintain proper behaviour even in their own space. Sarah, at the bottom of the table, says nothing. She has learned that speaking draws attention, and attention as a scullery maid is rarely positive. After dinner, Sarah must wash all the servants' dishes in addition to the family's. She returns to the scullery and begins the familiar routine: hot water, soap, scrubbing. The family's dinner dishes are extensive and elaborate, requiring careful handling. A broken plate would be deducted from her meagre wages. While Sarah washes, the other servants have brief leisure. Mary goes to her room to mend a stocking. Agnes writes a letter to her sister. James reads a newspaper discarded by Sir Thomas. These small personal moments are precious, brief islands of autonomy in a day dictated entirely by others' needs. But the leisure is brief. At 9 o'clock, the evening duties begin. The drawing-room fire must be built up, as the family will gather there after dinner. The tea things must be prepared and carried up. James must be available to serve drinks if Sir Thomas wants port or brandy. Mary must turn down the beds, an evening ritual where she prepares each bedroom for sleep. This involves straightening the bedclothes, fluffing pillows, placing a warming pan filled with hot coals between the sheets to warm them, ensuring the chamber pot is clean and accessible, and laying out nightclothes. Each bedroom must be perfect. The family expects to enter rooms that are warm, comfortable, and immaculate. They never see the work that creates this perfection. They simply experience it as their natural due. Sarah, having finished the dishes, must prepare for tomorrow. She sets bread dough to rise overnight for tomorrow's breakfast. She ensures the kitchen stove is banked for the night, damped down but with enough fire remaining to relight easily in the morning. She sweeps the scullery floor one final time, ensuring it is clean for tomorrow's work. At 10 o'clock, as the family prepares for bed, the servants begin to finish their own days. But not all of them. Someone must remain available in case the family needs anything during the night. This duty rotates among the servants, and tonight it is James's turn. He will sleep lightly, dressed, ready to respond if a bell rings. The others retire to their rooms. Sarah's tiny chamber off the scullery, Mary's small but better room on the upper servant floor, Agnes's similar room nearby. They undress, climb into their narrow beds, and sleep the heavy sleep of exhaustion. Tomorrow will be exactly like today, and the day after that, and the day after that. This is the life of below-stairs servants in a Georgian household. Unending work, strict hierarchy, little autonomy, and constant awareness of being at the bottom of society's ladder. While the daily tasks provide the basic structure of servants' lives, there is also a weekly rhythm to the household. Certain tasks are performed not daily, but on specific days each week. Monday is washing day, as we saw in the Victorian laundry script, though in this Georgian household, the washing is sent out to a laundress who comes to the house. She arrives on Monday morning and works in the wash house behind the main building, using the coppers and tubs there. Sarah's duty on Mondays is to carry hot water from the kitchen to the wash house, which means many trips up and down stairs with heavy buckets. Tuesday is ironing day. The clean laundry returns from the laundress, and Mary and Agnes spend Tuesday afternoon pressing everything with flat irons heated on the kitchen stove. The ironing is detailed work. Bed linens must be smooth, the family's clothing must be perfect, even handkerchiefs must be properly pressed. Wednesday is particularly arduous because it includes a thorough cleaning of the servants' quarters. Mrs. Morris insists that the servants' own spaces must be as clean as the family's, though this seems ironic given how little time servants have to rest there. Nonetheless, the servants' hall, the housekeeper's room, and all the servant bedrooms must be swept, dusted, and aired. Thursday is silver cleaning day, as we have seen. The complete inventory of silver is polished until it gleams. This also includes brass and copper items, candlesticks, fire irons, pans, and all the decorative metalwork in the house. Friday is market day. Mrs. Blake accompanies James on a trip to the market to purchase fresh provisions for the weekend. This is also when accounts are settled with various tradesmen who have delivered goods during the week. Mrs. Morris reviews the household accounts with Lady Ashford, presenting bills and receipts. Saturday is preparation day for Sunday. Since Sunday is nominally a day of rest with reduced work, Saturday includes extra preparations to make that possible. Food is prepared in advance. Extra coal is brought up. The house is cleaned even more thoroughly than usual. Sunday is the servants' partial day of rest, though rest is relative. The family attends church in the morning, and the servants must prepare them and then follow for a separate servant service. Dinner on Sunday is cold meat and simple dishes that require minimal cooking. The afternoon is theoretically free time for servants, though Mrs. Morris usually finds some tasks that need doing. Sunday evening, servants who have family nearby may visit them, though they must return by 9 o'clock. Sarah, whose family is too far to visit, instead spends Sunday afternoons mending her clothes or writing letters. The letter writing is difficult for her, as her education was minimal, but she perseveres, laboriously forming words to tell her mother about her life in service. This weekly rhythm, overlaid on the daily tasks, creates the full pattern of servants' work. It is predictable but not monotonous in the sense of being identical. There is enough variety in the tasks to prevent complete tedium, but it is certainly repetitive and exhausting. It is important to understand that below stairs is not a classless space. There is a strict hierarchy among servants, with clear gradations of status, power, and privilege. At the top are the butler and housekeeper, Mr. Graves and Mrs. Morris. These two are upper servants, addressed as Mr. and Mrs. Even though Mrs. Morris is unmarried, the title is honorary, indicating her status. They eat separately from the lower servants, taking their meals in the housekeeper's room. They have private bedrooms. They supervise all the other servants and report directly to Sir Thomas and Lady Ashford. Mr. Graves manages the wine cellar, serves the family's wine at dinner, manages the male servants, and handles various financial transactions for the household. He is paid a salary of £50 per year, which is substantial for a servant. He is expected to maintain a dignified bearing at all times. Mrs. Morris manages all female servants, orders household supplies, oversees the cleaning and maintenance of the house, and handles the household accounts. She is paid £40 per year. She wears black silk dresses, marking her status as an upper servant. She is strict but fair, expecting perfect work but not arbitrary cruelty. Below the upper servants are the specialized servants. James the footman earns £25 per year. Mrs. Blake the cook earns £30, reflecting her valuable skill. Thomas the coachman earns similar wages. The housemaids Mary and two others earn between £12 and £15 per year, depending on experience. Agnes the kitchen maid earns £10. At the bottom, Sarah the scullery maid earns just £8 per year, barely enough to pay for the few necessities she must purchase herself, as most of her needs, food, lodging, uniform, are provided. These wage differences reflect the hierarchy, and also the reality that servants at different levels have different expenses. Upper servants must maintain a more genteel appearance and may need to purchase better clothing. Lower servants have fewer expenses, but also less autonomy to spend their small earnings. The hierarchy also determines who can speak to whom and how. Sarah cannot speak to Mrs. Morris directly. She must go through Agnes or Mrs. Blake. Mary can speak to Mrs. Morris, but must always be deferential. Only the upper servants can speak to the family members directly, and even then, they must wait to be addressed first. This hierarchy is maintained through countless small rituals and behaviors. Who sits where at meals? Who enters a room first? Who gets the better bedroom? Who receives respectful titles? And who does not? The system is rigid and universally understood. Violating the hierarchy brings punishment. A scullery maid who speaks too familiarly to a footman would be reprimanded. A housemaid who fails to show proper respect to the housekeeper could be dismissed. The hierarchy is not just about work organization, it is about maintaining social order and ensuring everyone knows their place. For Sarah, at the very bottom, this means constant awareness of her lowly position. She is the least important person in the household, and everyone else outranks her. This is humbling, but also, in a way, simple. She knows exactly where she stands and what is expected of her. There is no ambiguity. One of the defining characteristics of servants' work is its invisibility. When done correctly, the work should not be noticed. The family should experience a perfectly clean house, perfectly prepared meals, perfectly maintained belongings, all without ever seeing the labor that produces these results. This invisibility is achieved through strict rules about when and where servants can be seen. Servants use separate staircases, narrow and utilitarian, tucked away from the main family staircases. Sarah and the other servants spend their entire working day going up and down these back stairs, carrying coal, hot water, dishes, laundry, and countless other items, never using the grand front stairs that the family uses. Servants must not be visible in the public rooms when the family is present. If Mary is dusting the drawing room and hears the family approaching, she must quickly finish and leave, or if that is not possible, she must stand silently against the wall, becoming as invisible as possible until they pass. If a servant encounters a family member in a hallway, the servant must flatten against the wall, face averted, waiting for the family member to pass. Eye contact is avoided. Speaking is forbidden unless the family member initiates conversation. This creates a strange, ghostly quality to the servant's existence. They move through the house constantly but are rarely seen. They hear everything: conversations, arguments, secrets, but must act as if they heard nothing. They are present but not present, working but invisible. The family, for their part, largely pretends servants do not exist except as functions. They rarely learn servants' names beyond the upper servants. They give orders without please or thank you, as one might instruct a machine. They discuss intimate matters in front of servants as if the servants are not there. This invisibility is psychologically difficult for servants. They are human beings with thoughts, feelings, and dignity, but they must suppress all of that to fulfill their roles. Sarah cannot show fatigue even when exhausted. Mary cannot show irritation even when given unreasonable orders. James cannot show any personal reaction even when treated dismissively. Over time, this enforced invisibility changes people. Some servants develop a kind of protective blankness, an internal emotional distance that shields them from the constant small humiliations. Others become bitter, though they cannot show it. Still others accept it as the natural order and find identity in being good at their work, in meeting the impossibly high standards. For Sarah, at 16, this is still somewhat new. She has not fully developed the protective shell that older servants have. Sometimes, when scrubbing grates at 4 in the morning, she feels the unfairness of it, the way her labor is simultaneously essential and despised, necessary and invisible. But these feelings must be pushed down. There is work to do, and feelings do not help accomplish it. Despite the hardships, there are occasional moments of relief or even pleasure in the servants' lives. These are rare and must be cherished when they occur. Sunday afternoons, when work is lightest, provide some rest. The servants can sit in the servants' hall, talking quietly, mending clothes, writing letters, or just sitting. This unstructured time is precious. The servants also form relationships among themselves, friendships that provide emotional support. Agnes and Mary, being close in age and rank, have become friends. They share a room and talk quietly before sleep, sharing the small details of their lives. Agnes tells Mary about her family in the countryside. Mary describes her dream of someday becoming a lady's maid, which is a prestigious position. Even Sarah, isolated by her low rank and young age, has found a small friendship with the kitchen cat, a mouser who lives in the scullery to keep vermin away. Sarah feeds the cat scraps and sometimes talks to it while she works, finding comfort in its presence. The servants also experience pride in their work when it goes well. When Mrs. Blake prepares a particularly successful meal and receives rare praise from Lady Ashford, she feels satisfaction. When Mary cleans a room to perfection and Mrs. Morris nods approval, she feels accomplishment. These small validations matter deeply in a world where criticism is common and praise is rare. Holidays provide some variation. Christmas is the major holiday, when the family gives small gifts to the servants, usually cloth for new dresses or a few extra shillings, and the servants receive a slightly better meal. There is also a servants' ball on Boxing Day, where servants from neighbouring households gather to socialise, dance, and briefly enjoy themselves. Sarah looks forward to Christmas despite the extra work it brings. Last year, the family gave her 2 shillings and a length of cotton fabric, which her mother sewed into a new work dress. This year, she hopes for the same. The gift is modest, but it matters. Birthdays are not celebrated. The family does not acknowledge servants' birthdays, and servants rarely have time or resources to celebrate among themselves. But sometimes a servant will quietly mark the occasion, perhaps setting aside a better piece of food or taking a moment to reflect. These small moments of relief, friendship, pride, and celebration are islands in the sea of relentless work. They do not change the fundamental reality of servants' lives, but they make that reality bearable. They remind servants that they are still human beings, not just functions in a household machine. For Sarah, at 16, her entire adult life in service stretches ahead. If she remains a scullery maid for several more years, she might eventually be promoted to kitchen maid, replacing Agnes when Agnes moves up or moves on. From kitchen maid, she might eventually become an undercook, and possibly, if she is skilled and fortunate, a cook in her own household. But this progression is not guaranteed. It requires skill, opportunity, and luck. And it takes decades. Sarah's mother was in service for 20 years before marrying. If Sarah follows a similar path, she will be in service until her mid-30s at least. The alternative is marriage, which would end her service career. But as we have noted, finding a husband while in service is difficult. Servants have little free time, limited social opportunities, and are constantly supervised. Marriages happen, but they require chance encounters and considerable persistence. Some servants remain in service their entire lives, never marrying, growing old in the houses they serve. These elderly servants are sometimes pensioned off by wealthy families, given a small cottage and modest income in retirement. But many are simply dismissed when they become too old to work effectively, left to fend for themselves with whatever savings they have managed. The future is uncertain and somewhat frightening for servants like Sarah. They have no control over their economic security, no guarantee of employment, no safety net if they become ill or injured. They are entirely dependent on their employer's goodwill and their own continued health and ability to work. This uncertainty is rarely discussed. Servants do not spend much time thinking about the distant future because doing so is depressing and unproductive. Instead, they focus on the present, the tasks that must be completed today, the problems that must be solved now. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges. For Sarah, scrubbing grates at 4 in the morning, the future is too abstract to contemplate seriously. There is only now, only the work in front of her, only the next task and the next. This is how she survives. And so we leave the Georgian household as evening falls and the servants finish another day's work. Tomorrow they will rise again before dawn, and the cycle will repeat. The grates will need cleaning, the meals will need preparing, the floors will need sweeping, the endless tasks will need doing. This was the reality for hundreds of thousands of domestic servants in Georgian Britain. Their names are mostly forgotten, their individual stories lost to history. But their labour sustained the entire upper-class lifestyle of the era. The elegant homes, the elaborate meals, the pristine clothes, all of it rested on the invisible work of people like Sarah, Mary, Agnes, and James. Their work was hard, their hours long, their pay low, their status humble. But it was work that mattered, that made other people's lives possible, that kept households running. In its own way, their labor had dignity, even if that dignity was not recognized by those they served. As you drift toward sleep, perhaps think of Sarah in her tiny room off the scullery, sleeping heavily after 16 hours of work, already anticipating the 4:30 bell that will wake her to begin again. Think of the countless others like her, through history, doing the necessary work that is never glamorous but always essential. And rest well, knowing that the quiet, repetitive work of ordinary people has always been what makes the world function, even when that work is invisible to those who benefit from it. Good night.